Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. This should be a really fun event. We're always looking for ways to provide more education, more access to resources to help founders navigate raising capital, under Reg CF, under Reg A, and figuring out how to do it effectively and optimizing your capital raises in this new kind of digital ecosystem where you can raise from retail investors. A little about myself. I'm Chris Lustrino. I founded Kingscrowd about 7 years ago with the very simple idea of building a Bloomberg, Morningstar, S&P investment research data company specifically focused on equity crowdfunding. We've tracked and rated 10,000 plus companies, 100% of the equity crowdfunding markets since they were pretty much founded in 2016. We are the one-stop shop for finding all of the investment research resources you need for navigating this space. And then we've built a full founder advisory division where we are supporting founders and helping them figure out if equity crowdfunding makes sense for them, where they should list, how much they can expect to raise, what their budgets need to be, and even help with deal structuring through our service called Raise Papers, which you could check out at raisepapers.com. So lots of tools and resources to help founders navigate these waters, all powered by the data we've collected over the past 7+ years in this market. So that's what we do, and we're here to educate and help founders navigate this space. So with that, I want to introduce you to Tyler of Coconut VA to get into what Coconut is all about, and then we'll kind of dive into their resources and have a discussion around how that might be able to help you in your capital raise. So Tyler, take it away. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I'm excited. And yeah, thanks everybody for joining. Excited to see everybody coming in right now. So I'll share my screen. I'll throw up this presentation right now, just to get us kicked off. So quick introduction to myself. Let's see, let's get it over here. Okay. So yeah, quick introduction to myself, Tyler Leber, one of the co-founders of Coconut. We started about 3.5 years ago. We are a VA staffing agency. We find people that are working in the Philippines, working remotely, and pair them up to US companies, and typically to founders, co-founders, CEOs. So our most commonly placed roles are like executive assistants. And we have actually grown Coconut. Well, I need to update this slide actually. It was 2 million ARR in 2 years. We're actually about 3 million ARR in now 3 years. So having fairly steady growth on our side. So that's a quick introduction to myself. Like Chris said, just to kick off this webinar, this education, I wanted to show you how a virtual assistant can really help you in not only your fundraising efforts, but also long term. So I don't want to take up too much of Chris's time. A lot of you are here for the equity crowdfunding topic specifically. So I want to be aware of that. I also just want to show you how a VA, how a virtual assistant could help you in your fundraising effort, but also just effectively using capital, today and also into the future. So going over these slides very quickly, these are our 5 most commonly placed roles. Again, we are targeting founders of anywhere from like $1 to $20 million a year in revenue businesses. And so our most commonly placed role, executive assistant. Then we've got social media manager, sales development rep, like an SDR, BDRs as well, project ops managers, and then lead gen and cold callers. Those are our 5 most commonly placed roles. I would like to highlight those first 2 really quickly because I think those are going to actually be helpful and beneficial in the fundraising process, even equity crowdfunding specifically. So here are a list of all of the different basic, advanced, specialized tasks an executive assistant could do for you. This is honestly like one of the most common questions that we get whenever I hop on a sales call with a founder. Like, I know that an executive assistant can help me, but I don't know how. Like, what do I actually tell them to do? Most people just say, oh, okay, I can have them take over my email. I can have them take over my calendar. And those things are very true, but there's also a whole host of other things that our clients end up delegating to their VA. And so here is a overview. It's definitely not an exhaustive list, but here's an overview of what all an executive assistant can do for you. I also wanted to, again, highlight how this could be helpful for you in the fundraising process. So an executive assistant, they're typically an integrator type personality. If you know the rocket fuel test philosophy, there's a visionary and integrator. if you are a visionary founder, most founders of these early stage companies are would be classified as a visionary. We are often finding integrator type executive assistants to pair up with a visionary founder. And so there is a lot of admin, monotonous, repeatable tasks that can be done by an integrator operator type personality. And so here's a list of a few of those things that could be beneficial for a visionary founder who doesn't want to deal with all of this. We definitely want the founder to be the one that's like actually meeting with angels, meeting with VCs, being the personal brand on social media. But there's so many other admin things surrounding those main actions that somebody else could do. It doesn't have to be on your plate.
Hey,
Like
Tyler.
invest. Yes, go for it.
So yeah, no, let's hit on some of this actually. So,
Yeah.
for founders, right? Folks who are on this, if you're thinking about doing a Reg CF raise, I think that's probably where most of you are thinking, right? There's some things that you should know about conducting a successful equity crowdfunding raise that are really, really important. Um, so you see investor updates, right? You say draft monthly or milestone emails. It's actually a whole lot more than that. When you're running an equity crowdfunding campaign, it's often suggested that you're doing at least one update a week, if not two updates a week. So if you go to any, crowdfunding platform, WeFunder, Start Engine, Republic, so on and so forth, you can actually follow deals. You'll see there's an ability to invest, but there's also an ability to follow. What
Mm,
we have found in the market over the past 3 or 4 years as the market's really started to mature is that most investors will not immediately invest in you unless they're already in your direct network. Most people are going to follow you and try and learn what you're all about and get that sense of trust and understand that you're actually investing in the business and trying to grow it and you're not just like a money grabber, right? So, typically what happens is during a fundraise, you will add 300, 500, maybe even 1,000 followers. And then on average, 30 to 40% of those will convert by the end of the raise. But a bulk of them, over half of those that will convert in the last 1 to 2 weeks. So
mm,
what you need to do throughout is actually, as a founder, is create updates every week or even twice a week where you're talking about, hey, we just won a new client. Hey, we have a new product development. Hey, we went to this conference. Hey, join this webinar where you're going to be able to ask me any questions you want as the founder of the business, so on and so forth. And then in the last week, you want to actually hit them pretty much every day and then even twice a day in the last 2 or 3 days, reminding people that it's about to end, have another ask me anything session, so on and so forth. All of that is to say is that just the update strategy alone, you're probably talking about somewhere around 20 to 30 updates, pieces of content that you need to produce and then schedule to be, to go out to all of your followers in your offering during that 3 month period where you're running a live raise. So, like, that's a lot of work, right? Just that piece alone is a lot of work. So having someone like an EA that can help you organize that content calendar, can make sure they're staying on top of you, maybe even helping you write some of that, that's really, really important. And then investor scheduling is another one. So one of the best tactics we've seen for founders to acquire investors at a far more affordable rate than just like traditional marketing is actually do LinkedIn outreach where you're using the filters, you're finding investors that kind of invest. If you're an ed tech company, invest in ed tech or whatever it is that says investor in their profile somewhere, and then doing outreach to them, sending them messages and setting up calendar invites, right? Getting meetings, having your Calendly in there, so on and so forth. It's going to be a fairly small conversion, but those folks tend to be a much higher value individual who can invest in your deal. Um, and then if you have email lists, you're pretty much want to do that same update strategy to them where you're hitting them 7 to 15 times during a raise to try to get them over the line and offering to meet with them as well. So there's all these components and pieces of content that you need to be producing, of outreach that you need to be doing. And I say all of that to get to the fact that if you can have some support during a raise from a firm like Coconut, where you have someone working with you to manage all of the minutia that comes with running a successful fundraise, that's a really powerful thing to have. So there's a lot of value here that I just want to hit on in that, like, it becomes your full-time job plus, right?
yeah.
Plus you have to run your company. So this is really, really valuable. This is part of like, hey, if I'm going to commit to this thing, am I really committing? Because we see so many founders who just think, I'll post it and I'll do well, or, I'll schedule, an update a month. And it's like, it's not enough. There's a lot you have to do. So anyway, I'll let you continue from there, but just wanted to highlight
Yeah.
where this fits in is kind of that project management of a much bigger project that is a capital raise.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And one thing that I would even add on is like the investor research, investor scheduling. One story that I can share, it's, need to keep the names and everything anonymous, but there's a founder creating this AI enabled software right now, and they used they're one of our executive assistants to do a lot of this investor research, to do this investor scheduling. And I'd say each one of these could have their own slides. Honestly, could probably have their own deck with how much information goes into this. But like finding aligned angels, right? Like if you're wanting to find, 25, $50,000 checks, even as part of an equity crowdfunding raise, there's so much research that you can do to figure out if those angels, if those people are actually aligned. ChatGPT, there's so many AI tools out there right now that an EA or yourself could use to do a lot of that investor research, to do a lot of that scheduling. So what this founder, what they did is they assigned their executive assistant of, hey, I've got this list of angels, go out, you know, tie in ChatGPT wherever you can to do the research. Here's kind of a rough template of the, information I want to find. Like, are these angels, are these people actually aligned with what kind of company I want to build and what I'm trying to get to? So, you're trying to find people that actually want to grow to the level that he wants to grow. You're actually trying to find people that are interested in this AI enabled type software. Have they made investments like this previously? What kind of check sizes have they done in the past? There's so much research that can go into this that can make your messaging so much more powerful. So for him, when he, finally does like an email campaign, it's not like a 10,000 email blast to people that, he doesn't know what they want, he doesn't know anything about them. It's like 300 emails, and he's rigorously researched each and every one so that like he has an incredible and crazy, reply rate, because every single person, like he's talking literally to them, as a friend, basically. So again, yeah, I'm sure we can talk more about that, but
No,
even
I
just the
think it's a
investor,
great
yeah.
point. I think it's a great point, and really important. And even on the sending intros and the follow ups, one of the other things that, again, I think if you're really smart and trying to leverage up your raise, so on a lot of the platforms, when an investor invests, you'll see it, right? And I know specifically on WeFunder, you
Mm,
actually will immediately get the email of that individual. What I always tell people is if they've invested $1,000 or more, it's very likely they can invest a lot more than that initial thousand
yeah,
dollars. And you should be reaching out to them. You should be saying, "Hey, are you interested in chatting? Appreciate your support. Would love to connect sometime and answer any questions you have." And a lot of times you could leverage those up. 10 or 20% will say yes, and you could end up building a relationship there. And I've had people who made tiny, tiny investments do tens of thousands, and in a couple of cases hundreds of thousands of follow-on investments
wow.
in the years to come. So this is your opportunity. As these people come in, this is not a one-time purchase, right? If you're really thoughtful about it, these are people that will continuously come back to you. So that's one thing. And then the LinkedIn postings, all of that, this is all part of your top of funnel growth strategy. Is you got to continuously tell people, like, you think it's everyone's world. You're like the least important thing to 99.9% of people, right? You kind of do need to be in their face. And it's a little bit like Hollywood, where you always have to be more dramatic on stage, right, to connect with the audience. It's like you have to be a lot louder than you think you need to be heard
Yeah,
and to be seen. There's almost 700 deals every day that are available for investment in this market. How are you going to cut through the clutter and be seen and be heard? So you got to think about that outreach strategy. And, again, any additional resources you could have in place to help do this at scale is really, really important during the active raise.
love that. And I do have something else to say on that LinkedIn posting side, but I'll actually go into the social media manager role real quick. So, again, you can feel free to screenshot this if you can, whatever you'd like. But here's some of the rough roles that we've seen outsourced to a social media manager through Coconut. I do want to go over to this slide of attracting that investor attention, just like Chris was talking about. Social posting strategy, specifically LinkedIn, and like that personal brand strategy. One like misconception I would like to clear up is a lot of people have, if they hear like, hey, I'm going to have my VA help me with LinkedIn, their mind immediately goes to like the worst case scenario, which I do not recommend, of like the VA literally gets a ChatGPT post, copy and paste it into your account and post it. Like that's terrible. Please don't do that. Like, and that's not what I'm recommending. That's not what I want you to do. Like, I want a EA to help you in your personal brand strategy. Again, just to do a lot of the grunt work and a lot of like the grind to get, just ideas, right? So like my EA and I, we will brainstorm this list of ideas. We'll try to get the best hooks. She'll help me rewrite posts, and I will even send her voice notes of like, hey, here's a 3-minute voice note. This is an idea of a post that I want to create. I don't have the time to like actually put pen to paper and write out what I want this to say, but here's the idea. Here's something, interesting points. She'll write that up in a draft. She'll get it up to like 85 to 90% complete. And then I'll come back in and says, yeah, this, sounds pretty close, but I'm going to change this here. I'm going to change that. This hook isn't really doing it for me. It doesn't sound like me. I'm going to change that. So, I gave her the idea at like a 5%, right? She got it from 5% to 85%. And then I took it the rest of the way. And now I can actually post it and it actually sounds like me. So that's the idea here. I don't want anybody to think that a VA coming into your LinkedIn, they're now ruining your voice, because you shouldn't do that, right? You shouldn't have your VA directly, communicating with your leads, your prospects, especially your investors. Like they're just going to help you say, hey, you've got 5 investor messages in your LinkedIn. I've drafted these replies. Go in and, shift whatever you want, and add in some personalized aspects. So yeah, just wanted to make some clarification there.
Yeah, and one other thing to add in here, I see the video editing, graphic
Yeah.
design. These are actually really important. Something that, again, the market has found in the last, call it 12 months. Early on, everyone said, hey, you need to have a professional video in place on your offering page. And I would still argue that's an
Mhm.
important thing to do, especially if people don't know who you are. But some of the most important content that you can create is actually short form videos with you kind of just speaking into the camera. If you have something to show, all the better, right? If you have a factory or something like that, or a product like an actual physical product. But if you don't, it's speaking to the camera and it's talking about what you're working on, a latest development, something that's going on with your business. And the idea of that is it creates an authenticity and opportunity for investors to feel like they're connecting directly with you. And those videos are actually working really, really good. And creating those kind of short, everyone uses kind of that TikTok scrolling video stuff now, right? The reels, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call them, and having video formats that fit that, where you make a 5, 6 minute video of updates, and then you have someone at Coconut kind of chop that up and do multiple postings with it. Again, it's just another engagement point, another piece of content to educate people. And it's working really well. All of a sudden, all of the ads that I'm getting for different Reg CF offerings, right? All I do is get targeted by it because it's our job.
Yeah.
They're all videos of the founders talking into the camera. And I'll be honest, it's something that I've been like nervous to do because it's a little intimidating to just like get on the phone and
Yeah.
start talking about whatever. And it's another piece of content that I need to get edited. But it's really important actually, and has been a high conversion event. So again, these are the types of things you want to be thinking about if you're trying to run a successful CF campaign here.
Yeah, love that. Well, yeah, just to go over the rest of the roles really quickly. Again, feel free to screenshot. I'm going to go through them very quickly, but these are, the main pieces of my content from this deck. Sales development representative. If you are, if you had a successful raise, if you're in the early days, if you need help on the founder sales side, getting an SDR that can do again a lot of the grunt work for you, right? Like they can do the list building, they can do the initial cold calling, cold emailing. One thing that we've seen be very successful actually in the crowdfunding and also just raising a round in general is setting up like an Instantly campaign, Instantly.ai. They're a really great player in like the cold email space. Um, you have to do it correctly. You can't just, spray and pray. You can't send out 10,000 emails because then your account's going to get banned and you're not going to reach anybody. But if you do it correctly, a trained, experienced SDR could definitely help you with that. Going over these last 2 roles, project ops manager. Most people think of VAs as EAs, executive assistants, but we are finding people, that are scrum masters. We're finding people that have, led HR departments. Like we find high quality, premium level talent. And then this last role that we put on here is lead gen cold calling. So it's very similar to the SDR role. But this is somebody that's literally just hopping on calls every day, and targeting whatever lists you might have. So yeah, that's it for me. That's the
Hey,
main
Tyler, can we
content I
go
wanted to
back?
share.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. Let's go back to the sales lead and the CRM.
Yeah.
This is another really important one. Something that I've implemented over the past 3, 4 years now is I actually run a CRM specifically for all of our investors. So this is
Mm,
outside of our customer CRM, right? I want those worlds to be separate, but I actually track everyone I've ever chatted with. I create lists, right? I have these are people who were totally not interested and probably don't want to hear from me. These are people who are interested but weren't ready to act. These are people who have invested and this is where they invested, Republic or WeFunder or Start Engine, right? We've used a bunch of different platforms. And then I could also see what they open, what they don't open, if they unsubscribe, right? All
yeah.
of that. But that CRM lets me understand like how engaged these folks are, if they're really interested. Can I move them over the line? I'll have Q1 targets. These are people who said, hit me back in Q1. So the more granular you can get with this stuff, the better. And then you could do targeted outreach. And don't think of any campaign as like this is it, right? I'm running this thing for 3 months and that's it. It's like this should be a living, breathing capital raise that lasts through the life cycle of your business. Some of the best businesses we're seeing have done 4, 5, 6, 7 capital raises, and you see each time they grow and grow and grow because they get that repeat investor. Um, there's been a couple companies now that have sold out full $75 million Reg A's, and that's not by coincidence, right? They have full marketing campaigns and CRMs in place and investor relations
Yeah.
in place and are constantly engaging these folks over years. And that's how you really start to compound the effect of doing equity crowdfunding raises is building a massive community of investors who are invested in your business and are willing to follow on. Every time Kingscrowd launches around, we could pretty much expect that we'll get $200,000 to $300,000 just from our customers. And there are customers slash investors who just like love us and will continue to follow us because they believe in what we're doing. And then we get to build on top of that, right? So there's a lot of power to managing these investors that come into your round. Do not think of these folks as one time. You should be managing them. You should have a full sales process in place because all capital raising is a sales process, right? You are selling
Yeah.
people equity in your business, but you have to sell them on that. And you need to have a process in place to sell them. So who's interested? Who's highly engaged? Um, and have all of your email marketing stuff set up as well. So anyway, that's actually a really, really important role. And I strongly suggest if you don't already have a CRM in place, you should be getting one set up to manage all of your investors and all the people that you're talking to and have your different levels of how engaged they are and how close they are to potentially investing.
Yeah. The only thing I would add on to that of like why that is so important is even this founder that I was talking about earlier, his recent raise went incredibly quickly because of the relationships that he's been building for years and like because he's treated those people very well and they know that they can trust him. And so he doesn't have to do a bunch of like, groveling or like intensive due diligence with these people. Like due diligence is important and you should do it, but like they just have so much initial trust of him because like okay, he's been successful at this, he failed at this, but he kept us informed and we know exactly what happened, right? Like you're not expected to be successful at everything you do, but if you're doing those weekly updates, if you're very transparent and if you're treating these people very well, like Chris is saying, like most of these people are going to be able to invest more in you later, if they have that trust, if they have that belief, and if they've seen this track record, not of like it doesn't have to be incredible successes each and every time, but as long as they know that you're a good person that wants to do well by them and make sure that they get their money back, hopefully a massive ROI, as long as they can trust you to do that for them, I mean, that's going to make any round, now or far into the future, a lot easier.
We had about 300 investors come through our WeFunder round last year, and we raised about 300,000 on WeFunder specifically. And then there was about 5 new folks I met through WeFunder who had done $1,000 to $10,000 checks. I think one person had done a $20,000 check. Um, those 5 individuals have now contributed almost $200,000 since. And
Wow.
something that I did was we didn't have a crowdfunding raise open at the end of the year, but we had an opportunity to bring on a director of sales, and I needed some additional capital to make sure I could support that new hire. And so I reached out, to our investor group, the folks who are highly engaged that I know are accredited, so on and so forth, and said, "Hey, we've set up a real small round here to raise enough capital to bring on this new hire that we're really excited about." And sure enough, 2 of those guys reached out and helped us get to that 100K mark in almost no time at all.
Wow.
So again, but that's because I had stayed in touch and built a relationship and had
Yeah.
phone calls with them. So this is a really powerful way to build your network. If you don't come from money, right? I don't come from money. I didn't have a network. I knew no one. But little by little, I'm getting to know these folks and then building that curated group of folks that I could kind of trust and call on by building that trust with them and building those relationships with them. So, anyway, as this market matures, we're seeing more and more processes of ways to optimize these campaigns. And Coconut, again, is just another resource to help you navigate the many complexities that come with this sales process. Because it's not a simple thing. It's really hard and it's a lot of work and it's a
Yeah.
numbers game. You got to talk to a ton of people and market to a ton of people and get more people looking at your offering page and engaging with you and engaging with your content, engaging with your webinars, and eventually converting them into, investors, paid customers, whatever you want to call them. Tyler, can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about some, you don't necessarily have to mention names, but some of the success
Yeah.
stories and organizations you've worked with in their crowdfunding raises?
Yeah, definitely. The main highlighted story, is the one I talked about earlier. Another one that I really liked, we going back over to the executive assistant, the three stores that I can think of, they all used executive assistant. So it wasn't social media managers, it wasn't, an SDR specifically, it was just an EA. That was helping them do that was helping them do everything that we've talked about, maintain their CRM. I've actually seen the systems of all of these people, and all of them had like a sponsor, or they had an investor CRM that they fairly meticulously tracked, and the EA was very integral in helping them do that. One really interesting use case that I've heard is that one thing that this founder was doing is that every time that they had an investor meeting coming up, or an investor update, with their investors, the EA would go in and do, again, very in-depth investor research and basically put in everything that they could find, their LinkedIn profile, all of that into ChatGPT, and then did the deep research of say, hey, tell me everything you know about this person. And they actually built in prompts too of like, hey, tell me if they've traveled anywhere in the past,
Hmm.
X amount of time. Like, tell me, what are their hobbies? Like, try to find any LinkedIn post, try to find any, social media posts wherever, or blog articles, right? And then he hit on these kind of personalized elements of each and every person so that each of these meetings could be very targeted. Again, like he knows what to bring up. He says like, oh, hey, I saw this LinkedIn post that you went to Greece last year. Like, I'm going there, on a cruise in a few months. Like, give me some recommendations, right? So just again, the prep work I think is so important, before any kind of investor call, before any investor update, like knowing what these people care about. Um, and honestly just being their friend and just coming prepared, and then also the follow-up. I think that is another key aspect of like where an executive assistant, for example, can help you out. If you are very on top of getting people the right documents, the right decks, the right, again, the right follow-ups, right? If we talk about XYZ on this call and the investor asked you for, this financial document and, these forecasts, and the executive assistant can, come up with that in the next hour or two, and you send that off, within an hour or two, like that's going to be hugely impressive. Again, not even just for today, but for any future relationship you have with that person.
Yeah, I love that. Would love to open it up to questions. If anyone has any
Yeah.
questions, please drop them in the Q&A here, and we'll work to get to as many of them as we can. But I think that's a great point. Actually, something that I always suggest when you're going into that call, yeah, having kind of that knowledge of who the individual is. Um,
Yeah.
if you haven't done that, right, I always try and find a connection point and also understand what's the angle of how I'm going to explain this business, right? If I'm talking to someone who
Yeah.
comes from financial services, right, and they're risk averse, then I'm going to talk about how we take risk out of the system by being a data driven
Yeah.
business. But if they're like, a total venture person, it's talking about how, the power law of this industry and how big it can get, right? Like that's the focus point. You always want to find that hook and that way to
Yeah.
connect with that person based on where they're coming from. So that's a really, really important piece of this equation. And doing your homework on those folks before you chat with them is always really, really good. Um,
Yeah. And even real quick on that, like one very specific prompt that we found works really well when doing this research, especially on the investor side, is create like a psychographic profile on this person. If you
hmm,
tell ChatGPT to do that, it's really really interesting because they'll basically just bring in all of the information that you have, like copy and paste the LinkedIn profile, blog articles, anything. And very similar to what you're saying, Chris, is like you'll know exactly what points to hit on based on their philosophies, right? So yeah, if they are risk averse, like you want to point out the reasons why, your company, what you're doing is not a risky play, right? Like, you're going to know what points to hit on based on that psychographic profile of this person and of their fund portfolio, their fund direction.
Another thing that I think is really important, again, yes, we live in this digital age and this is a way of raising money from the masses, right? Um, but at the end of the day, again, I would say once you get into the north of 10K checks, they're fairly rare unless you're getting to know them more personally or
Yeah,
meeting in person, so on and so forth, right? It might be the engagement point, but then you need to build on it. So I'll tell you right now, right, our raise ends next Wednesday. I'm going to be attending an investor event on Monday in New York City. It's like a high-end investor group that, does different investor meetups. And so I'll be there on Monday. Then on Tuesday, I'm actually hosting my own meetup in New York City. We already have
nice.
like 18 or 19 people signed up. Right? I just set it up on Eventbrite, found a bar downtown New York City and said, hey, I'm going to be here, and sent it to everyone following us on Start Engine, everyone who's invested before. And we have almost 19 people sign up for that. And I know most of them are larger check writers that are planning to attend. And then on Wednesday, I'll be in Atlanta at another investor event. And Tuesday morning, I have a investor webinar with a group called The Money Show that basically has accredited investors come and follow. It's a lot of events. It's a lot of things to track, but you need to be doing these
Yeah.
things. So the more you can coordinate and have a full schedule of events and engagement points with investors, the better. So anyway, I think that's really, really important. One question here: how to do crowdfunding if one does not already have a network of followers? It's a really good question. So what I always tell people is one, you have to set your expectations right, right? So if you have no followers, if you have nothing and you're going into this, don't say, I want to raise $1 million. Say, boy, a huge success would be to raise 125K, right? That would be a major success. And even if I could raise the first 50 to 75 to get me off the ground, that would be a really major success too. If you set it there, then I think the next question you have to ask yourself is, okay, how it like we all, maybe we start off, we don't have a network, but the beauty of crowdfunding is that anyone can invest at a very low minimum, right? $100. Like, so the question then becomes, I don't need to find someone to give me a 25 or 50K check. I need to find someone to give me $500, $1,000, maybe $2,000. I will tell you myself, the first $118,000 I raised was all people I knew. I wouldn't call them angels. They were people I worked with at my old job. They were friends from childhood. They were my professor in college. They were classmates of mine. Like, I literally got everyone I knew to put in $500 to $1,000 or $200 or $100. And from those things, I raised $118,000 from like 82 individuals. It took three
Wow.
months and it took me just literally calling people all day, every day for 3 months. But I was able to get that first group of capital in. So there are ways, again, you have to set your expectation. You're not going to raise $1 million or more, but you can get something going. And then from there, you could start to build a little more momentum. Um, okay, I'm a founder who's wearing way too many hats. I love the virtual assistant idea. It almost sounds too perfect for my current needs. Are there any blind spots I need to be aware of if I go that route?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, sometimes it can sound too good to be true. The reason why it might sound too good to be true is you do have to be paired with the right person. You need to find somebody that's going to complement you well. So just I think knowing a lot of self-awareness, like knowing what you really need, and knowing like what's actually going to help you. Are you a visionary type founder? One funny question that I always ask visionary or founders in general is how many unread emails do you have in your inbox? And most visionary founders, it's like 10,000 or 100. I've had a few people say they have 100,000 unread emails in their inbox, which is absolutely wild to me. I'm more on the integrator side. But if you are that kind of an individual, then you do need somebody that's very conscientious, very detail oriented, and they're okay with the boring stuff that probably you don't want to do, that you don't like to do, that you always just push off, procrastinate. And so, yeah, that's one thing that I would recommend is just having that self-awareness. But then also a big thing is just doing a weekly review on your own of like what tasks, projects are are you typically doing in a given week? Just go through every day if you want to and just track, hey, these are the things that I'm doing. This bucket of tasks I really do need to do, like it's an investor, meetings, right? Like you have to do those, you have to be on those, but there's likely a lot of other admin tasks that you don't need to do. So for us, for Coconut, we have a minimum of a part-time VA, so 20 hours per week. So that would be the only other thing I would say is if you don't have enough work that could come, that could equate to 20 hours per week, we are probably not the best fit for you. And it's probably not a great time to hire an executive assistant. And then of course, just the budgeting side. Like we typically find EAs for $14 to $16 an hour. You can find cheaper talent out in the world, but it's going to be a little bit riskier. You might not be able to find as high quality of talent. You do kind of get what you pay for to some degree. And that's the same thing for hiring anybody, right? If you want a super high quality A type player, A team player, then you're going to need to find somebody that, is worth that. So yeah, that would be my only points there.
Um, Signed on a bit late. Did you discuss any cost breakdowns for these services in the slides? I'm a founder stocked with content and in need of this representation and support.
Yeah, for us, for Coconut, it's anywhere from $12 to $24 an hour that we'll be able to find you a VA. For an EA, it's probably going to be $15 to $16 an hour. Usually we start part-time with people, 20 hours a week. But yeah, for all of you that are on this webinar, we also do a free trial period. So we basically say, hey, give us your job description, figure out what roles, what responsibilities you want to delegate. We'll go out, find candidates. We'll send you intro videos. We'll do interviews with you. And then you also get to work with your top pick VA for a week before ever paying us anything. So happy to put in a link or send out a link to apply for that free trial period. But that's a great way to test out. Are you ready for an executive assistant? Is this something that's going to be worth it for you?
Awesome. Um, okay, for me, how much equity is required to give each investor? I realize if a startup has a lot of risks and it may be a higher equity given, but if it is already well on the way and has traction. So ultimately you're getting at, hey, what does the valuation need to be, right? It's not necessarily about what percent does each individual need to get, because that could be very, very small at $100, right? If I'll just tell you off kind of the top of my head from looking at our data, and we have some tools we could share with you after this call. If you're a brand new idea on a piece of paper with no backing or anything like that, but you're some sort of technology company, I would say anywhere between like a 2.5 and $5 million valuation is likely where you need to be. And likely you use something like convertible note or safe, where you're kind of saying, hey, you will never pay more than this valuation that I'm representing today in the future when we actually establish a real value for the business. But nothing beyond kind of the 2.5 to 5 million valuation. If you were a company with, call it 500K to a million plus in revenue, that's where you start getting into, like, again, if you're tech enabled type business, I would say an 8 to 10x revenue multiple is reasonable, but is really going to depend on the industry, on the business, so on and so forth. But really early days company, we basically see a 5 million or sub 5 million valuation. If you're more of an SMB or like a brewery with no traction, right, then you're going to be talking about a $1 million, maybe a $2 million valuation coming out of the box. So really depends. We have a valuation and market comps tool that I'd be happy to share with you all, where you'll be able to enter that information in and learn more about kind of what that looks like. Another question here: what is the best crowdfunding site for a medical device? That's a really good question. Again, our data can kind of help you navigate that at kingscrowd.com. You kind of play around and see where med device companies are listing. You use our filters and check it out. But I will just, again, tell you off the top of my head, Start Engine and WeFunder right now are definitely very strong in that category, kind of in healthcare in general, are good places to start. And if you're a really early days, with kind of no backing yet, then definitely would lean WeFunder. If you have more traction or more established investors already in the business, Start Engine, would be more open to meeting with you. Um, all right, excellent. Let's see if we have any more questions. All right, I am going to share in the chat a link that Tyler has shared with me. Oh, that's not it. It's an old copy paste. Let's try this. Okay, so here's a link that you can use to sign up for a trial period application with Coconut for their services. And then I will also provide a link to Raise Papers. So if you're looking for consult services and thinking more about doing a Reg CF in the future, you can sign up to meet with myself and have a consult and discuss, potentially pursuing the path of a Reg CF or even a Reg A down the road. So feel free to reach out to us. Always happy to chat. It's Chris@Kingscrowd.com or Chris@RaisePapers.com. Would be more than happy to chat.
Nice.
Excellent. Tyler, any final words? It looks like we've answered all the questions here.
No, nothing else for me. Yeah, really, really glad to be on with Chris today. Hope you guys got a lot out of this. Really excited to chat with any of you. If you need help on the hiring, staffing side, I'm also happy to answer any questions about VAs in general. You don't have to hire through me. That'd be great if you did, but also happy to answer questions anytime. Definitely an open book. And yeah, look forward to hearing more from all of you guys and wish you the best of luck in your fundraising efforts.
Terrific. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending today, and look forward to hearing from you all. Have a wonderful day. Take care now.